Delighted to say joining me today, as often, nearly always on a Tuesday, is Tom Slater, editor of Spiked Online. Morning.
Morning.
Well, what a rip-roaring 24 hours that was. I mean, it really was like, okay. Morgan McSweeney, the director of... the Chief of Staff of the Prime Minister, he resigned on Sunday afternoon. On Monday morning, we had Tim Allen go, his Director of Strategic Communications. I think we were all surprised to learn that there was someone directing strategic communications in Number 10, but 'twas he. Talk that the Cabinet Secretary, Sir Chris Wormald, that he's going to be out within days, could have his departure announced formally at any point today. And then we had news that Anas Sarwar, the Scottish Labour leader, who was looking at winning the Scottish Parliament elections about a year ago, and now looking at coming third behind the SNP and Reform, he basically got on his feet, told the Prime Minister in advance, I'm going to be calling for resignation. And then the ring round started. Every Cabinet Minister within about 45 minutes had messaged their full support of the Prime Minister, clearly being dictated to on the phone, including even non-Cabinet Ministers like Angela Rayner. One person who's studiously absent from this was Andy Burnham, the King of the North, Manchester Mayor. Then the pointing of the fingers, front pages, all about, was streeting? Was he the man plotting? Had he been the one who told Anas Sarwar to go? Angela Rayner's leadership website appearing briefly online. What is going on? And is the Prime Minister today stronger or weaker, as he chairs his first Cabinet Minister since then, than he was yesterday?
Well, he's stronger, but only because the people around him are almost as weak as he is. I mean, this is such an unpopular Prime Minister, this is such a disastrous Prime Minister, and it's now a Prime Minister who can't really command the support of a majority in the House of Commons. But because the Cabinet don't really know what to do, they haven't coalesced around one particular candidate, and also because a lot of the candidates aren't nearly as strong as they like to think they are, as well as a lot of people in the media like to think they are, they haven't been able to move. Hence you had Anas Sarwar's kind of completely abortive coup attempt yesterday, which didn't come to very much at all. So the only positive for Keir Starmer is a negative, which is that he's woeful. He's on the way out. It is only a matter of time. He's
in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
Exactly.
I mean, basically, he's hopeless and useless, and everyone knows it. But the people who want to oust him are also hopeless and useless.
Quite, yeah. And that's why we're in this holding pattern, but it can only last, can it outlast a bad Gorton and Denton by-election result for them? Maybe not, but certainly at the end of the May elections, on the other end of that. I think that's also part of the calculation here, is who wants to grab that poison chalice at this point.
Right, this is the thing, right at this moment. But also, crucially, how ready are people? Because if you look at it, Angela Rayner, again... She's got her hair done. Again, you're not an influencer in Dubai. Please try and be a grown-up. It's just embarrassing. But Angela Rayner, a website for Angela for Leader, a nice polished website, briefly appeared as just very briefly now, accidentally on purpose. Who knows? Everyone knows she's gunning for the leadership. I mean, genuinely, if the Labour Party want to elect Angela Rayner as the leader of their party, fill your boots, guys. Again, it's going to be a rip-roaring ride. It really is. I mean, she's still waiting for the HMRC to finish their investigation over her unpaid tax, so she's got scandal all around her. And again, the Epstein thing is kind of an over-there thing for a lot of people. I mean, it's disgusting and awful in every way, but there's an element where everyone has to pay their taxes. How absolutely flipping furious people are when people are struggling financially to, they're having a baby. I like when my husband and I, we were having a baby, and we had a one-bedroom flat. In the second floor, we had to buy somewhere new. That point when you're paying your stamp duty, when you're trying to get to a bigger home, just because you're growing your family, or that is such a big pull on people. And the fact that she didn't pay her full stamp duty under the laws when she was actually Deputy Prime Minister and the Housing Secretary, when she imposed this rule on second homes. Sorry, that does not sit well with a lot of people. But she's not ready. She needs that ruling that she didn't do anything wrong. Which, who knows, will it come or not? But we've got Wes Streeting. He put out all his messages with Peter Mandelson. Not particularly damning. He's criticised the Prime Minister, the direction of the country, and I have to say, I think a very good decision by him. Yeah, I was matey with him. They're not particularly worrying. The only thing that worries me is he genuinely thinks that Israel's committed war crimes in Gaza, which makes him an idiot. And so if you're going to believe Hamas's lies, then I'm really worried about you being Prime Minister, frankly. But other than that, you think, look at who else? I mean, Andy Burnham, not an MP yet, so he's not ready. I'd say the only two people who are ready, David Lammy, utterly delusional, God bless him, Ed Miliband, who's been out on manoeuvres today and insisting categorically he's not running, he will not run. He will definitely run.
It certainly seems that way. And the fact that we're even discussing Ed Miliband becoming Labour leader...
Again?
Despite how it went last time round, despite the bacon sandwich, despite the headstone, despite what an embarrassing moment for this once serious party. Yeah. Even that I think, tells you everything you need to know about what the Labour Party is about. It did manage to win that last election off the back of a lot of demoralisation and the collapse of the Tory party.
The Tories lost that election. Labour didn't win it.
But what we're seeing now is very clearly the fact that for the same reason that Keir Starmer could become Labour leader is the same reason that maybe Ed Miliband could become Labour leader again. It's because it's a busted flush. It has no intellectual energy, no political energy whatsoever. The front benches are incredibly thin in terms of talent, and so it is just a kind of proverbial group of baldies squabbling over a comb.
And we exactly, and we know who the Labour backbenchers are going to want. Fundamentally, they are going to want to have a lefty, and all of those candidates are on the left. Perhaps not so much Wes Streeting, but it doesn't matter whether Wes Streeting's on the left or the right. No Labour Prime Minister with this lot of backbenchers can get anything done that needs to be done in the country unless they've got the support of the Labour backbenchers. They made it very clear, they will oust as soon as they choose to. So it does same in-tray, same economic woes, same international issues, still dealing with Donald Trump and his idiosyncrasies, and you've still got the same backbenchers. I don't know what changes other than the fact that the lights will go out if Ed Miliband is in charge. Andy Burnham as well. Well, in fact, I mean, basically start taking your money abroad now. If Ed Miliband or Andy Burnham become leader, the markets, the bond markets will just go absolutely loopy. And then people go, well, we don't care about the bond markets. That's fine. You can not care about it as much as you want. But when government borrowing is at the level, 110 billion that we actually pay in interest alone right now, when the interest rates go up, we pay a lot more, and that means either your taxes have to go up because we haven't got enough billionaires to do all the taxing on, and they'll leave anyway if you tax them more, or you have to cut public spending. If you cannot care about the bond markets until it will absolutely affect your day-to-day life.
No, they certainly care about you is the issue.
Yes,
and I think that was one thing that Andy Burnham really humiliated himself ahead of Labour conference last year when he said, we shouldn't be in hock to the bond markets. You can say that. The point is that you are, and that's because of a series of decisions made by successive governments now have made us even more exposed to those kind of fluctuations in the bond markets than we otherwise would be. So if you want to have a serious plan for trying to ensure that we aren't so indebted, we aren't so exposed, then cool, but that's not what they're talking about. Just kind of posturing against the markets, trying to appeal to a sort of Zach Polanski curious voter. And that's where the Labour Party is headed, not because it has any serious ideas, not because it's come up with a kind of new political economy for this very difficult economic era we find ourselves in, but because it makes them feel good and it gets them retweets. That's basically what governs the Labour Party now, and it has done for some time.
We are still completely in student politics territory, aren't we? I do think it's fascinating, the Prime Minister, though, so, losing Morgan McSweeney, so it was Morgan McSweeney said it was a bad decision to appoint. It all comes back to appoint Mandelson, big mate, busy mates, best pals with a notorious convicted paedophile. So he's lost Morgan McSweeney on Sunday, lost Tim Allen yesterday, who came back in, who's a former, Blairite advisor. Lots of talk about in Westminster that Tim Allen, he's got nothing to do with any of this stuff, but that when they have the investigation published into who knew what when and everyone's dealings, everyone in Number 10's dealings with Mandelson, he was very close to Mandelson, worked with him over the years, that there may be some quite rude things about other people in Number 10, including the Prime Minister, in those messages, so best to walk away now. That is the rumour I've been hearing. I have no knowledge whether that is true or not, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'm told we could lose the Cabinet Secretary to Chris Wormald. Also over this Mandelson appointment, he was actually only made Cabinet Secretary 4 days before the Mandelson appointment was made, so hardly a massive part of that decision-making process. But Jonathan Powell, National Security Advisor, still some question marks over him. But it's fascinating, basically the idea is from Number 10 is that the problem is the advisors. Now, they also, what's that old phrase, a bad tool maker blames his tools. So a really rubbish Prime Minister who's the son of a tool maker blaming his advisors as rubbish tools? I don't know. But work on that as you will. But, maybe, Prime Minister, the problem is you.
Exactly. And this is something that was highlighted by the Morgan McSweeney, Peter Mandelson scandal is that it's not even that Keir Starmer has bad political judgment. He has no political judgment.
Yeah.
He does not make political judgments. He takes a very long time to come to a decision. That's apparently why Morgan McSweeney was so useful in Downing Street.
Have this idea that he's some arch strategist?
No, but because he was useful because he would harry the Prime Minister into actually making any decisions. Otherwise, he would just sit on the fence and take his time. And then similarly with the Mandelson issue, it's well established now in much of the reporting that Keir Starmer didn't particularly like the idea of Mandelson being the ambassador to the US at first. He even favoured George Osborne as a potential candidate.
Not Bear Grylls. Apparently Bear Grylls was on the list.
Bear Grylls.
Still love that. My favourite fact of this whole thing.
What a different world we could have been in. And it was McSweeney who essentially turn him around because of the fact that he doesn't have any judgments himself, and also the new Labour apparatchiks coming back into the fold.
But he's brought them in.
Him bringing them in was a function of the fact that he didn't know what to do, so he defers to that previous generation constantly.
Exactly. He doesn't know why he's Prime Minister or the point of any ideas. Well, we're going to talk to Carl Turner, Labour MP, who's the one who's threatened to basically resign and hold a by-election over the abolition of jury trials. He's a former, what's got law degree. He's been doing the media rounds today, being very supportive of the Prime Minister, which has been very, very interesting. And this whole narrative about the Prime Minister is now unshackled from this Blairite cabal and free to go left. And it's like he appointed them all. He appointed them all because there was no one half decent in the party. Who else could you put? I mean, can you imagine also how awkward this cabinet is right now? I mean, just Garibaldi, Mr. Streeting. I mean, come on. Let's talk about another aspect of this because the King very much involved in this now, because he's got the powers to issue a statement yesterday saying the King and the Queen stand ready to support the police probe into Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, his brother, amid claims that now, I mean, not just we've got allegations, there are police investigations looking into allegations about young women being supplied to him, but also that he leaked confidential documents to Epstein while he was the UK trade envoy. He was in that job for 10 years, and in fact, he was ousted in 2011 because it would emerge that picture of him in New York with Epstein. It's kind of, this is where it all really exploded. But basically, there was already some question marks about Air Miles Andy basically going off to golf courses and beaches and stuff, and using these trips to his personal gain as well, pushing businesses. Lots of stuff that he was looking to set up a business in China with Epstein. By the way, for like 5 years after he was publicly known to be a convicted paedophile, when Andrew had been since saying no, absolutely, to Emily Maitlis, had nothing to do with this guy since then. I mean, basically, there's not a word that comes out of Andrew's mouth that is not a lie, as far as I can tell. But just based on what he has said himself and what we know to be true, assuming these documents are real and genuine. But certainly there is an investigation to not just Lord Mandelson into whether or not he was actually supplying confidential government and financial information to Epstein for his financial gain, and now Andrew as well. Bearing in mind that he was working for his own mother's government at the time. We are looking, I mean, Tom Tugendhat yesterday, we're talking about being a traitor, talking about treason at this point. Does the King, though, who got heckled yesterday about what did you know and when, there was booing after that. The booing was for the heckler. But I thought it was a legitimate question. Does the King get credit for this? He has acted very quickly. He took away the HRH, took away the Prince, talk about that. He's shoved him out of his posh home to another posh home on the Sandringham estate. He's going to pay for him, basically, to stop him moving somewhere else and living on life of Riley. He'll just live quietly. That's the idea. I don't think he will live quietly in the Sandringham estate. But here's the thing. Has the King done enough? And do you get brownie points for saying, I'm going to cooperate with the police into a very serious investigation into someone who happens to be the member of my family? Because it's looking very likely that there has been a long-standing, many years, high-level cover-up by the palace, under the Queen, the late Queen, of what Andrew was getting up to, either with his friendship with Epstein and his visits to an island where girls were being trafficked and to another home where girls were being trafficked, but also these confidential documents being leaked.
Well, as you say, it's not clear to me that the King could have moved much quicker. I mean, certainly...
Before he was King, he didn't have the power.
No, exactly. And the reason that Andrew was looked after, to put it lightly, for so long was because of the fact he was the Queen's favourite. She did want to kind of tried to keep a lid on this as much as was humanly possible, was clearly infuriated by his attempts to relitigate this in public by the Newsnight interview, and pushed him very much to the margins of royal life. But he wasn't stripped of his titles, he wasn't completely absent from the occasions, and that has now changed. I mean, are we expecting King Charles to kind of, put Andrew in the tower himself? It's probably not going to happen. So maybe what we're seeing here is being clear that he's willing to work with the authorities is about as far as it can go. But it does raise very difficult questions of the monarchy, as you say, particularly at a time where, in the absence of the Queen, someone who did command a fair amount of authority and public support, the current occupant of the throne doesn't enjoy that kind of level of public support.
Which is interesting, given the hagiographic treatment he's had from the media. And yes, look, he's he's had the cancer treatment. He's gone, he's gone through a lot in the last year. Got every sympathy on that. And again, the sycophantic royal correspondence, going on about, but I think what he's done with Andrew, he's acted a lot quicker, let's face it, than the Prime Minister did on the issue, and he was clearly horrified. I don't think there's any question at all that the King would justify or be accepting of what he believes Andrew's got up to. I don't think that is. I don't know the man at all. Unlike the royal correspondents, I don't pretend to. But I mean, I'm not a monarchist, but he doesn't strike me as being that kind of person. Okay, and
there's not much love lost between them either.
No. So it's not. Yeah, it's not like his beloved. Yeah, I know he's his brother, but he ain't his beloved brother. That's for sure. But this is all about the firm. As Diana said, this is about the firm. This is about protecting the firm. Andrew's accused of Virginia Giuffre. She was paid off, including money provided by the late Queen, because there was going to be too much damage of Andrew going to the civil case in America, because we could see what the damage being done by Newsnight. That's the reality. That it was worth the money for him to be paid off. The HRH, the dukedom, and the house, that's all been stripped because you're protecting the firm. That's what it's all about, and they will stop at nothing to protect the firm. That's their job. It's the institution. But I don't like it when people get brownie points for saying, I will cooperate with a police investigation into very serious crimes. Damn sodding right you will. Yeah. Was it no? But did it need to be said? Is he just stating the obvious? In which case, okay, fair enough. But was there an implication that actually the palace had not previously been or was not planning to cooperate?
And it's not entirely clear that we're even at the end of the beginning of this, where Andrew or Mandelston is concerned. I mean, it's worth remembering that the thing that sparked this latest wave of this scandal was the release of files by the American Department of Justice. Whereas in the UK, it's not often the done thing to point it out. Obviously, there are ways in which the royals are able to stop certain things from coming out. There is still a level of deference which exists. There are still certain connections which can be leaned on, leverage that they can use. They do not have that over the American Department of Justice. There are going to be more materials released at some point.
We haven't seen all of them. No, people haven't gone through all the files, and we haven't seen all the files, and a lot of the files being released are redacted. Exactly,
and that every file that gets released is also going to spur more reporting. People who've been working on the Andrew story for a very long time, looking into what he may or may not have been getting up to when he was trade envoy. We've already seen stories in recent months of, again, quite unseemly, seedy parties taking place in royal residences. All of these things is going to build up and build up and build up. And even though we might stand back and say the King did as much as he could when he was in a position to do something, it's going to really potentially dog the royal family and kind of corrode its level of public support, which was always much more vulnerable in the wake of the Queen passing on, because it was very much invested in the individual, not the institution. Yeah,
absolutely. And I do wonder, I would be very surprised if actually the King hadn't, when he was Prince of Wales, been begging the Queen to take action sooner. And again, her favourite son, and didn't do it. Mums have a blind spot often. What can we say?